Let's begin.
Hey there, scary story fanatics! Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. Been stuck at home with too much to do? Looking forward to getting back to work? Well, I suppose it would depend on your definition of gainful employment. So, check off that list and clear your schedule. This is one story that just won't leave you alone. The Honey-Do List.
The orange sun of the sunrise brightened the siding of a two-story, white, suburban home, tinting the home a shade of pale yellow. It was a typical-looking home, similar in size to the houses around it, a neatly trimmed lawn, 2 new cars parked in the driveway, and even a timed sprinkler system that was coordinated to activate in synchronicity with the neighbors' lawn watering systems, orchestrating a ballet of waterspouts and clicking noises. Inside the home, a typical day began in the same fashion as many of the occupants of the nearby houses. Inside, a couple slept happily beside each other in their queen-sized bed. A respectable photo of the both of them together was highlighted in a picture frame beside the bed on Alexandra's nightstand. They made a handsome couple, an aspect that completed their picture-perfect lifestyle. I, Barry, opened my eyes lazily after the sunlight had begun peeking through the window blinds, landing upon my face and the golden hair of my wife, Alexandra, who was still sleeping peacefully in the bed beside me. I crept from the mattress, ever so stealthily, and grabbed the red robe beside my side of the bed, residing within an armchair. I didn't want to wake Alex before I had a chance to prepare a pot of coffee and a little breakfast for the two of us. Walking into the kitchen and opening the fridge, I sifted through its contents with my eyes. "Eggs," I said. "Eggs, toast, and maybe if we have it, aha!" I exclaimed to myself, opening the freezer and finding a pound of bacon. Somewhere in the time of making coffee and frying the bacon, I heard the bathroom door shut upstairs and the shower turn on. Alexandra must be awake, I thought to myself. Well, there goes breakfast in bed. I smirked in thought. Upon removing the bacon, most of the grease, and adding 4 eggs to the pan on the stove, my beautiful wife wrapped her arms around me from behind. She had a knack at being quiet. I didn't even hear her come down the stairs. Never mind into the kitchen from behind me. "Hey, baby," I smiled, knowing the feel of her touch. "I'm making you breakfast. I was gonna bring it to you in bed, but you woke up too early," I finished.
"So, does that mean I should run back up to the bedroom and climb back into bed?" I smiled as I kissed my husband on the cheek, playfully darted back out of the kitchen, and jogged up the stairs towards the bedroom.
I put the finishing touches on our breakfast plates, placed them alongside drinks on a tray, and carried it out of the kitchen to bring it to Alex. I smiled to myself as I walked past the little list hanging near the entrance to the kitchen, a small list of daily chores that Alexandra created to help remind me of the trivial daily tasks that had a way of slipping my mind. I proceeded up the stairs to bring the meal to my awaiting happy wife. Walking into the room, I smiled at the beaming grin boasted on my spouse's face.
"Ooh, goody, my breakfast is ready," I joyfully proclaimed, with an intentional cuteness to my tone. I really enjoyed the attention Barry showered upon me. He always made me feel so special. I eagerly sat upright, shuffling the pillows behind me to support my back, and readied myself for an early morning breakfast with my husband.
After handing her the tray and removing my plate and cup, I sat in the chair beside the bed and savored my personally concocted breakfast in the orange glow of the sunrise coming from beyond the window glass, now turning a brighter shade of yellow as the day also began to greet itself.
"You have a meeting today, right?" I asked Barry as he finished up his plate.
"Yeah, I gotta leave in about 40 minutes or so."
"You gonna have to stay late again?" I asked him. Barry had a way of having to stay late every Tuesday or Wednesday so as to, quote, prepare reports for the following day. It wasn't just this routine that facilitated suspicion, however. It was how he would come home and shower immediately after walking through the door. Something he only did on these nights.
"I don't know, most likely," I responded to Alexandra with conviction. "I'll call you after the meeting. I should know by then." I informed her further, but I knew the truth already. I already knew that I was not coming straight home after the business day had ended. I drank the remaining coffee in my cup, stood to my feet, and kissed my wife goodbye for the day as I gathered the empty dishes from her lap as well. Her hair smelled like that of green apples and flowers, the result of the fragrant shampoo and conditioner. Still, there was something else underneath it, a smell that was inherent to her. It was absolutely intoxicating. "I love you," I said with a smile.
"I love you too. Have a good day. Try to call me on break," I reminded him as he turned to walk out of the bedroom.
"I will. I'm not sure if I'm gonna take lunch or not, but if I do, I'll call." I walked back down the stairs, placed the dishes in the sink, and grabbed the items I needed for the day. These included my wallet, keys, suit jacket, and the like. When I proceeded out the front door of my home, I was hit by the blinding light of the sun. The days had surely begun to get brighter earlier, signaling the coming warmer weather. Morning birds were singing their songs as various people could be seen exiting their respective homes to gather the paper, enter their car, or other such activities. I looked like all these yuppies with the suit, haircut, and seemingly similar lifestyle, but there was a huge difference between they and I. I don't think like most people do. Call it a troubled childhood, or digging too deep into the human psyche. But I see the world for what it is. I see the scum that inhabit it for what they really are. Humans think of themselves as superior beings, superior to nature, superior to animals, superior over other humans. The truth is, humans are animals. Sure, we have the capability of language and establishing guidelines for a civilized society, but honestly, who follows these rules? Politicians squander citizens' hard-earned money while simultaneously preaching integrity and responsibility. Authority figures insist on following certain social guidelines set forth by corrupt people, yet often abuse their power and break rules themselves. I spied my neighbor across the street, waving to me with his stupid smile as he climbed into his car. I waved back and thought of how his wife had been cheating on him for the past 6 months. I thought about that stupid grin on his face and how his beliefs, his sculpted happiness, it's built upon the same lies humans tell themselves each day to create a synthetic world around them. Humans are nothing more than a disease, consuming the planet and each other. Sure, the occasional ambassador of human decency may show his face, but he's only the complement to the darker side of humanity, the side that embraces what we really are, the side that is truly free. That's where I come in. I climbed into my vehicle, just like the rest of the drivel that surrounded me, and headed towards my respective place of employment. Sure, I did have a meeting that day. I wasn't lying about that. However, I don't really remember the details. Work was just a dance. Acting. The putting on of a performance so as to conform to the expected behaviors of an individual living in Western society. It wasn't really until I arrived at my second home that my memory becomes vivid. The yard of my little cabin belonged to a friend of mine. Well, I don't think the person considers me a good pal, but he was one of my earliest victims and holds a very special place in my heart. You always remember your first, or in this case, your third. The man was the last remaining member of his entire family, meaning the quaint little cabin in the middle of the woods was quite isolated from interruption. After pulling in close to the porch steps, I turned off my car, grabbed the keys, and exited via the driver's side door. The night was quiet, nothing but the sounds of crickets and distant night birds. It was in this moment of stillness that I remembered that I had not called Alexandra. This was pretty negligent on my part, but she seemed to be accustomed to the weekly routine, so I thought she would simply understand. I opened the creaking door of the old, musty cabin and walked back into the small kitchen area. On the left wall, another crude, wooden door was posted on the wall, framed in a chipped, dark brown paint. This door led to the basement and the reason for my return to this place. The stairs creaked as I crept down into the depths of the cellar. With each creak, the sounds of grief-stricken whimpering and sobbing from the corner of the old cellar grew louder and louder. They always seem to panic and cry more as their time approaches. Honestly, this is the part I've always liked the most. To watch them writhing in their bonds, begging for mercy with their eyes. There is just something so exciting about holding someone's pitiful excuse for a life in the palm of your hands and then squashing it like an insect. I watched my recruited playmate plead with me with sorrowful eyes, thrashing at the chains, binding her to the wall behind her, as I readied myself for some me time. Apron, plastic hairnet, gloves, and goggles, all this combined with some ratty old clothes to put underneath, seemed to be adequate for the purposes of overall cleanliness. The girl struggled at the anchoring points, keeping her arms bound to the wall, holding her wrists far from her face, keeping her from getting at the gag. I grabbed a fillet knife, amongst various other creativity-facilitating instruments, from off the bench to my right, and turned towards my shaking and tearing victim, still holding on to the beliefs of personal innocence, superiority, probably God. I was going to show her the true nature of God.
I knew something was off. I had my suspicions for quite some time now. That deceiving snake wouldn't get away with it for much longer. A husband doesn't really understand the type of hatred he can create by staying out at night, doing who knows what with God knows who. A husband doesn't truly comprehend the monstrous nature of a woman scorned. Although I had my suspicions of Barry's late-night extracurricular activities, I was quite sure he had no inkling of mine. Still, although I had some secrets of my own, I wanted to catch Barry in the act. I waited till he pulled out of the driveway and drove from sight down the street. After he had gone, I stopped peering through the bedroom window like some private investigator and quickly got myself dressed and grabbed the 9mm pistol I had stashed under my mattress on my side of the bed. Barry would never find it there. It's not like he ever made the bed or anything. I locked up the house and proceeded into the garage via the living room door. After climbing into the car, starting the engine, and placing the pistol in the glove compartment, I pressed the open button on my remote garage door opener, attached to the visor above my head, and backed out of the driveway. As I backed into the road, so as to pull forward and speedily drive away, I used the same remote device to close my now open garage. Barry's work was only a short drive away. It didn't take long to get there. Rather, it seemed to take forever for me to spot him coming out of the office building and return to his car after work, a couple rows ahead of mine. I allowed him to gather a small amount of distance between the two of us before I pulled out to follow him. As predicted, he drove right by the turn for our house, speeding right by it as if he never had any intention of returning home after work that day at all. The bastard didn't even bother to call me on his break. I understand being busy, but anyone could find the time to call their wife during the day just to say a quick hello. Who the fuck did he think he was dealing with? Who did he think he was screwing over? Well, he was going to find out, that's for sure. I followed a distance behind him, out past the outskirts of town and into the countryside that encompassed the urban area. At first I thought he may have noticed me behind him when he began to slow down. I began to slow as well, thinking I may have been spotted, when he turned into a rustic gravel driveway, pulling out of sight due to the dense vegetation. I slowed to a stop as I pulled off the side of the road. I turned off my lights and killed the engine. I sat there for a few minutes, allowing him to get comfortable doing whatever it was he was doing out here. After 15 minutes or so, I reached over to the glove box, opened it, and pulled out the 9mm pistol. After getting out of the car, I placed the gun in the pocket of my jacket. Closing the door quietly, I took off very calmly down the road, towards the driveway just up ahead. Turning the corner, neither Barry's car nor any structure was in view, just a long driveway-like path that seemed to disappear into the forest before me. Although the little house-like shack could not be seen from the main road, the house and Barry's car pulled in real close to the front porch. My earlier assumptions were only supported at this point, as no lights could be seen coming from beyond any of the windows. The sky was a navy blue now, nearly black, the time of day most people turned on their lights. That fucking bastard, I thought to myself. Silently, I crept up the rickety steps of the porch and prepared to smash a window with the butt of my pistol to gain entry. However, upon inspection, I found the front door unlocked. Slowly and gently, I opened the creaking door. I thought for sure the noise would have alerted anyone inside to my presence. To my surprise, nothing stirred. It seemed as though I was still undetected. I was about to head up the stairs when I heard something coming from behind the door, from beneath the floor. He's in the basement, I thought to myself. Sure, I found it odd that he would be in the basement, of all places, but my fury at the time didn't allow me to linger on the thought. I was going to catch him, and that was it. Quietly creeping through the house, I eventually found a door in the kitchen that led down into the cellar. Placing my feet at the sides of the steps, I was able to keep the stairs from creaking as I descended. The light beneath was dim, brighter than a candle, but dimmer than what would emanate from a proper lighting source. Reaching the bottom and standing behind the closest wall, I peered around the corner to see something I did not expect to find at all. The room was lit by a single mechanic's light, dangling from the wall at the far end around the corner. To the left of it was a bound, bloodied girl, chained to the wall with numerous distinctive wounds on her abdomen, face, and legs. She appeared to be missing a couple of toes, fingers, and her left ear. I saw Barry approach her with something in his hand. I honestly couldn't tell what it was. It could have been a drill, or maybe a handheld sander, but as he approached her with it, she struggled at the clasps on her wrists, let out a muffled, desperate scream, and looked away from him. As she did, her eyes landed on mine. At first, Barry didn't notice. He didn't notice me or her pleading stare in my direction. I then realized that what he yelled was indeed a sanding device. It wasn't until he had torn up the left side of her face and stopped to antagonize her with questions did he finally notice the locked-on stare in her eyes. I thought of hiding once again as he began to turn around, but I decided to stand my ground. I was the one with the gun.
"Honey, what are you doing here?" I asked, as I turned and saw my wife standing behind me, pointing a gun at my head. This is the point in time when most yuppies yell out, "This isn't what it looks like," or "I can explain." Well, in this case, it's exactly what it looked like, and the need for an explanation didn't seem prevalent at the moment.
What the fuck is all this? What the fuck are you doing? I asked Barry, who was staring at me with an intense calmness about his face. The girl behind him was whimpering, most likely praying for all of this to be over.
I suppose I'll come right out with it. I'm a sadistic murderer who enjoys the suffering and torment of others. I would have told you sooner, but, I explained honestly.
But why? Why are you doing this? I asked, wanting at least some kind of explanation.
Honestly, honey, I wanted to know what her head looked like on a stick, I informed Alexandra, prompting more screaming and rattling of chains behind me. Then, something completely unexpected occurred.
Oh, can I see? I asked him, wanting not to be left out of the fun.
I was taken aback. Could she really be interested in doing the same things as me? Did she really have the same urges and social perspective that I did? Sure. Why not? I told her. The girl behind me began to sob. Are you sure you're up for it? I further inquired Alexandra.
Are you kidding me? What the hell do you think I've been doing during your nightly outings? It seems like you and I, honey, aren't all that different after all. Each week I've been going out during your late nights, finding a man who wants to cheat on his supposedly beloved wife and lure him away to some secluded location. After that, I blow his fucking brains out. Personally, I wish you would have told me sooner. I think we would have had a lot of fun together as long as you're open to the idea. I placed the pistol back in my jacket and asked Barry for a handsaw.
Handing my wife the saw, I watched in a trembling delight as she approached her squirming victim and slowly dug the teeth of the saw into her neck. The following morning began as a typical one, sun leaking in through the window, prompting me to arise and prepare breakfast for Alexandra and I. I couldn't help but smile when I passed the little list hanging on the kitchen wall next to the door, chuckling to myself at the newest additions.
Till body into the garden out back, and remember to refill the chainsaw.
So, if you can't divorce them, join them? I've heard of a threesome, but that's not quite what I had in mind. But if you're left feeling a bit indulgent yourself, make sure to stalk me again back here next weekend. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.